George, thanks for joining me today on our Expert Insights series. This is really our first time to really get out in front of the public here and talk about the combination of Treasury Go and Treasury 4 that we announced in September. You and I had the opportunity to reconnect, hard to believe, 3 years ago at a Noi Group technology forum down in the Bay Area. And where you and I had the opportunity to sit down and kind of compare notes on what we were doing respectively at Treasury 4 and Treasury Go. And that kind of got us reconnected and thinking about, potentially ways to work together, which we started at the beginning of this year. So love to just get your take on, where Treasury Go started, and then the synergies that you saw with Treasury 4, and then ultimately leading up to what we announced in September as the joint integration and acquisition. So George, love to get your thoughts.
Sure. Well, it's interesting. We were, as people may know, Ed and I were forged in the fires of Microsoft Treasury about 20 years ago. And we always had a passion for basically tools, and I think the word we're using these days is modules that would help us with our work process flows that weren't available in the third-party markets out there. So we really had to, roll our own, so to speak. So ultimately what we ended up doing was an RFP that outbound licensed the Treasury developed modules. And as it turned out, a small startup called Treasury Go won the RFP for a number of reasons. And a lot of people were interested, banks and consulting companies as an example, but we really didn't want to, we wanted to be bank agnostic, and we did not want to wrap it with a huge number of consulting hours. And so that's how this startup really came to be. And after I retired, they say retired from Microsoft as long as you don't go to a competitor, then it's called something else. But when I retired, I spent some time, air quotes, on the beach, and the startup called and said, "Hey, would you like to come and help, tell this story and sell it with us?" And I said, sure, because, basically my wife had said she married me for life, but not for lunch. So I needed to get out. And the trick is that we, as you pointed out, we ran into each other at one of the Noi Group functions. I believe it was a Snowflake. And we ended up really comparing notes. And the irony, and maybe you can provide a little bit of the background of your time at Microsoft and then subsequent, but I would say that we were starting in different places and kind of headed toward the same spot. And the types of things that you started on were very, very important. Entity-based management. Nobody was doing that, but it's similar to us. We were doing intra-company loans, and no one was really offering that kind of functionality. But both integral to that, schema and process. And at the end of the day, we really saw some complementary functionality that was able to, accelerate our time to market to really get us to a place where now we're a full-blown TMS offering across a number, as we're calling them, 5 modules here. And I think that is the strategic rationale overall. Long-winded way of saying I'm super excited to be part of Treasury 4, and really looking forward to breaking out in 2026.
Well, thank you for that, George. I think one of the real key stories here, messages, is that yes, there are a lot of solutions in the marketplace, but there's not a lot of solutions that are built by practitioners, and I think that gives us a distinctive differential approach and how we think about what we're building for our customers, and a lot of the nuances, like you had pointed out, that Treasury has to deal with, where maybe off-the-shelf systems historically haven't solved for those needs, and especially some of the edge cases. You mentioned intercompany loans as an example, or thinking about entity management as a foundation for building the platform. And so bringing that practitioner approach, I think, helps us really understand, because we've lived the needs and the challenges of the practitioner and solve for those along the way in our respective paths here. So I think a lot of great capabilities are coming out of that. I think part of the story too here in Treasury Go and Treasury 4 is we just didn't start this journey in September when we announced the acquisition, but it really began at the beginning of 2025. We've been working together as a team and coming together as a unified organization. What are maybe a few of the learnings around that for you, George, that as we brought the engineering teams together and the sales motion together and the product roadmap together? Any key learnings from that you'd like to share with the audience?
Well, one of the great things that we were able to do was to set up a wholly owned Indian subsidiary at Treasury Go, and the US-based development core that Treasury 4 had. They complement each other really well. It's really fascinating in the sense that we're, basically, as trading desks used to do, we're actually passing the book to between the desks and overnight. So we're not just working. I don't think it's 24/7, but it's 24/5. And so that has really created an accelerated momentum in terms of what we've been able to develop. And I think the other aspect to it is that the two teams have really gelled well together, and it's really fun to watch, basically the adoption of what I would refer to as agentic AI within the development process. Even I am able to write code now, basically, and so we're all contributing in different ways, but it's really just made us so much quicker to market. Even our VC that led the Series A for Treasury 4 has put us in front of their other portfolio companies to talk about how we're implementing AI in the development process.
That's a great point. Our adoption, and the way our team has, I would say, embraced AI tools across the spectrum to drive development, drive integration, and workflow. And I think it's been phenomenal to see that, and it's in how fast those tools are changing, but also how fast our team is continuing to adopt it and learn and leverage those tools. And you mentioned agentic workflow, and that's actually going back to some of the basics of Treasury. That's one of the big synergies that Treasury Go has brought into Treasury 4 is this workflow capability around the platform. And that's what we were missing in terms of more of the complex workflow that multinational corporates have, whether it's for bank account management and change management on those accounts, to requesting and approving and reviewing things like intercompany loans and funding requests, and being able to take those concepts into broader workflows around entity management or tax data management. And so there's a lot of synergies that leveraging the intellectual property and capabilities that Treasury Go has continued to develop, and bringing that together with Treasury 4. So speaking of some of the trials and tribulations or being forged in the fire at Microsoft, I kind of go back to some of the things like in, one of the great things that's benefited my career is, which really came out of a one-on-one you and I had in 2004, which was, you were saying, I would just love to have daily visibility to all of Microsoft's bank accounts around the world, automated daily. Can we see it, all the transaction activity, which ultimately led to us and Microsoft being one of the very first corporates onto Swift to drive that visibility. And I think even today, nearly 20 years later, that ability to have automated visibility with your bank accounts and extending it into your investments is almost as hard today as it was then. But it's a key need for treasurers going forward. From your perspective, how does visibility to bank balance and transaction, or even the broader liquidity, why is that important? And what are maybe some of the changing market conditions that we're seeing today that really continue to make that a critical path and critical need?
Well, it reminds me of half joking comment that I would use as a throwaway during my time as treasurer, when I would say to people, on your phone, this phone right here, you have a better banking experience than I do as a corporate treasurer. And that, frankly, is primarily driven by the fact that as soon as a company starts to grow and they move beyond one banking relationship, you can't aggregate your balances. It just is, you have to go to their portals directly, and then in the simplest sense, you have to pull it out, take it to Excel, and add it up manually on a daily basis. And then the challenges were associated with what is cash? In the simplest sense, in a lot of cases, if you have international accounts, the cutoff's different, so the timing's different. A lot of instances, people are using different FX rates for non-USD denominated accounts. And in other instances, some people are using, what I would refer to as the accounting balance, or the source being the general ledger versus the bank account. And particularly in the credit crisis, we ended up really spending some time trying to make sure that we had a common definition or schema for what is our cash visibility, because that's where it all starts. We can't make a 13-week forecast without knowing how much we have to start. Forget all the inflows and outflows that you're predicting. And if the starting point is different depending on which part of the elephant you're touching, the joke about the elephant, which is if you touch the tail, it could be a rope, touch the leg, it could be a tree, touch the trunk, it could be a hose. I mean, that was just depending on different people's perspective, what the cash balance was. And that was not going to fly during the credit crisis. We needed to turn around exactly our exposures to various banks, if you recall, that would, be rumored to be going bankrupt over the weekends. And the truth of the matter is, that's, as you point out, as relevant today as it was yesterday. I mean, not too long ago, we had everybody trying to figure out how much money they had at Silicon Valley Bank.